Okay, so our turning point battle in the Eastern Theater is the Battle of Gettysburg. It lasts 3 days, July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. July 3rd, Union win. Robert E. Lee and his men are forced to retreat back down to the South. This is the deadliest battle ever to take place in American history. 51,000 casualties, 10,000 dead. We know that they decided at Gettysburg to officially bury these 10,000 and build a cemetery we'll talk about in a moment. Now, of course, Lincoln wanted General George Meade to go after Robert E. Lee, attack their army once and for all and end this war, but he doesn't. And he doesn't because both armies are very weak after this battle. Casualties, immense casualties on both sides. And so because General Meade does not follow Robert E. Lee and destroy the army once and for all, he gets fired, even though he's the first general to actually win a battle in the Eastern Theater. So that is one of our turning point battles. The reason the Battle of Gettysburg is considered a turning point battle is because this is a huge victory. This victory has shown that the South, the Confederacy, will not be able to bring the fight into the North, that the battles will continue to take place in the South. And this is a huge victory for the Union. Now, at the exact same time that General Meade is winning the Battle of Gettysburg in Pennsylvania in the Eastern Theater, there's action going on in the Western Theater with Ulysses S. Grant. Remember, in the Western Theater, it's all about the Mississippi River. And the Battle of Vicksburg isn't going to last a day. It isn't going to last 3 days like Gettysburg. It's going to last 47 days. This battle starts in May, will work all the way through June, and will finally end on July 4th. And the Battle of Vicksburg is a second turning point battle. This battle, if you take a look, takes place right along the Mississippi River. If the Union can take over Vicksburg, they take over this stretch, the southern stretch of the Mississippi River. And after 47 days, the Confederacy surrenders, and Ulysses S. Grant wins the Battle of Vicksburg and takes over the Mississippi River. This is a huge victory. Now, the Union not only controls the northern half of the Mississippi River, they also control the southern half of the Mississippi River, basically having control of what goes up and down the river, but also what goes across the river. Now, everything here in Texas and Arkansas and Louisiana, they can't get soldiers and supplies to the other side. This is a huge blow for the Confederacy and a huge win, a turning point battle for the Union. And the Battle of Vicksburg and the Battle of Gettysburg literally are happening at the same time. The Union wins the Battle of Gettysburg on July 3rd. Even though the battle lasted 47 days, they actually win the battle the very next day on July 4th, 1863. Back to back battles. It's amazing. Now, bringing us to November of 1863. Remember those 10,000 dead at the Battle of Gettysburg? Well, they have finally finished burying them and building this cemetery, and it's time to present this cemetery to the public. They decide they want to have a speaker that would present and do a speech at the ceremony. Now, you might think, who would they invite? Well, they don't think to invite Lincoln. They actually invite this guy, and he's like a professional speech giver. They're like, oh, he would be great. So they invite him. And then at the very last minute, they're like, ooh, let's invite the president. He probably won't come. He's super busy, but let's invite him anyway. And they invite him, and Lincoln agrees. And so Lincoln takes the train into Gettysburg, and they have this ceremony in November of 1863. The professional speaker gets up to speak first, and he gets up, and he gets on the podium, and he gives a speech that lasts for that lasts for 2 long hours. And at the end of the speech, everyone's applauding. They're like, wow, that was amazing. And then it's Lincoln's turn. And Lincoln gets up and he stands up on the podium and he gives a speech. And it lasts for 2 short minutes. And when the speech is over, everyone's like, really? That's it? That's all he's going to say? And at first, everyone said that Lincoln's speech, which is today known as Lincoln's Gettysburg Address, he's addressing a group of people, that Lincoln's Gettysburg Address was terrible. But over the last 150 years, people have looked at the words of Abraham Lincoln's speech and they've said, wow, you don't have to say a lot to say a lot. You may have heard the beginning of Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. It starts this way. It says, 7 years ago. That might sound familiar. Now, we don't talk that way today. 7 years ago really means 87 years ago. A score is 20 years. Well, 87 years before the Gettysburg Address, that was the year 1776, the year that the colonists declared their independence from England. He's basically saying 87 years ago, back in 1776, we fought to become a new country. Now our country is fighting itself. And we're gathered here to dedicate a part of our country to be a cemetery for the people that died so that our country can live. It's just what we need to do. And he goes on to say in very grown-uppy words, there's not much we can do because the people that died here did more than we could ever say. He basically goes on to say that it's the job of us still living to make sure that those 10,000 men did not die for nothing. We've got to keep our country together and keep our country alive. And this speech, although it wasn't appreciated at first, is now literally one of the most famous speeches in American history, Lincoln's Gettysburg Address. Now, after the Battle of Gettysburg, General Meade fired. And if you take a look at this list, Lincoln is frustrated. Mick Lazy failed, Mick Hesitant failed, Burnside failed, Fighting Joe failed, and now General Meade didn't do what he needed to do. He's like, what am I going to do? Who am I going to get to beat the unbeatable Robert E. Lee? And then he realizes he's had the right guy all along, just in the wrong place. He realizes it's General Ulysses S. Grant that he needs to beat Robert E. Lee. And so he says to Ulysses S. Grant, will you come from the west? I mean, you've already done great things over there. You've already taken over the Mississippi River. Would you come to the east? And General Ulysses S. Grant says, I will, but I'd like to bring my BFF with me. His friend is General William Tecumseh Sherman. Now, Lincoln is not a fan of this guy. Lincoln thinks this guy is unpredictable. He's a hothead. He doesn't always make good decisions that Lincoln agrees with. But he really wants Ulysses S. Grant here in the east, so he agrees. And we'll find out how the two of them handle 1864.